Welcome to
Tamarindo Podcast.
Hosted by me, Brenda Gonzalez, a fitness coach, political nerd, and nonprofit capacity builder.
And me, Delsy Sandoval, a Guatemalan-American licensed therapist and passionate creativity advocate. Together, we're here to uplift our community through powerful conversations with changemakers, creatives, and healers.
Each week on the pod, we talk politics, culture, and personal development. Listeners call Tamarindo the Advocacy and Self-Love Podcast. Vámonos! Let's start the show!
Hello, Tamarindo listeners. Hi, Brenda.
Hello again. Hello. How's it going? What are we going to talk about today? I'm really excited about this particular episode.
I'm excited too. On this episode, we're going to dive into something that everybody's super familiar with, you and I especially, from doing the show, just our relationship to social media, its impact on our mental health, and kind of figuring out how we take more control over our relationship to the digital world.
Yes. Well, I know we're going to get right into it. And I want to, first of all, welcome you back to California. I know you've been doing some travel. So I skipped over just our regular catch up. So what is your que pasa? What have you been up to? What do you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, let's do that. I have been traveling a lot kind of for work and going to different places. I spent some time in New York. And it is such a massive, like, mental confusion to go from one major city to another major city. I'm kind of readjusting right now.
And also the coast, right? The coast to coast, that thing is big. Nothing to report here, just a regular old week on this side of the country. But I guess right now we're recording on National Latina Day, so happy day to us.
Yay, happy National Latina Day. It's such an important time to recognize us, right?
Go us, and go listeners that are
how much
also
we
Latinas.
Accomplish and celebrating ourselves even when we don't accomplish, which I think is important.
Exactly, and why? This is a perfect segue. Why might we not accomplish certain things when our phones get in the way?
That's the best segue yet, because today I thought it would be fun to kick it off with a little bit of a game, Brenda. But this game is going to require that you let people into your phone. I don't know how we're gonna do it, pero vamos a ver. The idea is, for the listeners out there, we are going to kind of sight unseen go into our phones and look at our screen time.
Okay.
And how long we've been looking at our phones, how long we've been scrolling, and what apps we are looking at. And kind of see how we're doing, you and I, with our relationship to social media right now. So, si quieres, I can start.
Okay, let's go. Let's hear Delsy's screen time showdown.
All right. So, to be fair, I had to look up how to look up my screen time. Because
okay, good.
Let's start there, because I
never
had no
done this
idea.
Before.
So, I have an iPhone, and it has a lot of stats on like what I do here. And I can see, if I click on it, that this week I have looked at my phone an average of 3 hours and 47 minutes a day. And that was a total of 11 hours and 21 minutes a week. I mean, oh my God. So let's start there, Brenda. Let's start with your time.
Okay, so how much time on the phone? We're looking at a week?
A week.
So it says my daily average in 1 week is 6 hours and 15 minutes, which is down 16% from last week. So yay! So that's the screen time. Do I go by day? Do you want me to click on day for today? Well, today it says I have 5 hours and 28 minutes. So most of it was today.
If you look at week, it'll say total screen time.
Oh, yes. Okay, so total screen time is 18 hours and 45 minutes.
Okay. So what is your reaction to that, Brenda? Because my reaction is, okay, if I'm on this phone 11 hours and 21 minutes, what am I doing for 11 hours and 21 minutes out of my week? Because that could be a part-time job.
Oh, I know, right? I mean, I'm not surprised at all, because I know that I spend a lot of time on my phone. And now it's literally like there's a physical, I mean, there's probably more than this particular physical reaction, but one very specific physical reaction that I have is that I literally injured my wrist from too much scrolling a couple of years ago. And I can sometimes start to feel, oh, shoot, that's going to happen again. So I stretch my wrist and I do the things to strengthen my wrist, because the force of the phone is literally the force of 10 pounds. So that means that I'm doing, my little wrist is holding these 10 pounds for those 18 hours.
Wow.
So, and that's at least one of the physical manifestations of our cell phone addiction that I feel literally in my body.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring up your body, because I think a lot of times when we talk about these things, we only focus on like our mental health. But there is a physical component, right? A lot of people bend over when they're looking at their phone, and that can cause some challenges with your vertebrae. And for me, it's my eyes.
Right,
Like
the
after a
vision.
while, like the cloudiness of my eyes. Sometimes I feel like a strange jaw pain, which
I'm not surprised about that, because we might be clenching our jaws as we're doom scrolling. Like, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good opportunity for us to take even stock of our physical reactions to this scrolling that we
to this
do a lot of.
technology. And interest. So let's look at what specifically we are looking at on our phones.
Yes.
So I have here, and a little bit embarrassing, pero vamos a ver. My top is Instagram with a whopping, in 1 week, 2 hours and 41 minutes, which is
Okay, that's
actually pretty
nothing.
good. It's actually pretty good.
Does it say, that's, yeah. When does this week start? Because it's Tuesday, so maybe. Well, mine says 5 hours and 24 minutes, 4 minutes on Instagram.
On Instagram. And then my next one is Netflix with 1 hour and 7 minutes this
Oh, you
week.
watch Netflix on your phone? Probably because you were flying, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
My next one says messages, which I mean, I am part of a lot of like a very active text message group from a bachelorette that's over 2 years old. So that's, most of it is probably that. But I see that my next biggest app is TikTok. It says that I spent 1 hour and 42 minutes on TikTok, which is why which is not very cute, not very demure, not very cutesy.
I'm on WhatsApp as my third. WhatsApp. So I'm connecting with all the people. And this is, again, group chats and things like that. I also have messages. And then I spend a lot of time on my camera, which is interesting. And if you look at my camera, surprise, surprise, it's not all pictures of me. It's mostly photos of plants, flowers, skies, sunsets, and cats. So let's just be clear on how I'm using my camera. But I find it really interesting, Brenda, and I think it would be nice for us to kind of talk a little bit more about how that relationship with technology manifests itself. So here we go, a conversation about digital health. Enjoy.
All right. Cool. So then we'll take our little break.
That was awesome. I like
go-
hearing about what you do online.
So much. I'm not surprised at all. So much Instagram. Okay. So now,
I
okay,
feel
we're done
like
with the phones, right?
my stats are skewed this week because I was working so much.
Yeah, and
They're
you're
not
traveling.
my normal stats. Normal stats would be more. All right, so today we're talking a little bit about what it's like to disconnect, to reconnect, and rethinking our relationship with social media. And I'd like to start off by talking a little bit about like what exactly is happening here. What is the impact of technology and social media on us? And I think we have some idea, but there's definitely a lot of information out there, Brenda. You probably know a lot of this information, and I'd like to hear from you too. Once I share a little bit about me, I'd like to hear about you and what the impact is. You kind of alluded to it earlier. There's so many studies out there that are focused on understanding what the impact is on mental health with folks online and scrolling, what that means. And there have been some of these studies, and we'll put them in the show notes for everybody to kind of take a look at. But one that was really interesting was that they were reducing social media, like they were limiting how often you could go on social media if you were part of this study. They just reduced it by 30 minutes a day. And there was a significant impact on the lowering of depressive symptoms, anxiety, and people feeling lonely. And I think there's something so fascinating about that, because you think that social media would connect you and make you feel less lonely. But according to this study, social media is making you feel lonely. There's some kind of correlation there. And there's also these other studies around self-esteem and blue light emission when it comes to sleeping, and kind of the way that it impacts your overall well-being. And then I want to jump into doom scrolling, but before I talk about that, Brenda, what is your reaction when you hear that? Are you feeling like maybe you're experiencing some of these effects?
Yeah, actually, and before I knew we were going to speak about this, I started to just think about the fact that you and I are millennials. I'm an elder millennial, but a millennial nonetheless. And so we've had this unique experience that we knew a world without the smartphone, right? We are familiar with this world without the smartphone. And I started to think about like my experience growing up as an immigrant. And I think, for example, maybe you had this experience as well, where your mom or passes you the phone. Habla con tu tía. Like they give you the physical phone to speak to some relative that you don't really see very much, right? And you have to like say a couple of things. I think that generations today, they may not actually have this experience, because social media, in a way, one of the positive things I see is that it's made our worlds a little bit more connected. So I love that today, because of Facebook and all these things, I kind of have a sense of what the everyday lives of my primos and tias are, even though they're so far away. So those are some of the things that I enjoy about social media. I enjoy that we met, you and I met because of social media. So there are so many benefits, but I'm also the research that you cited, and I've heard this in other conversations that are about mental health and well-being, that there is now a little bit of a dependence and a risk. Now we're, like you mentioned, even though the sense might be that because we're connecting with so many people, you would think we're less lonely. And it turns out that actually what's probably happening, this is my guess, is this FOMO, or you're not going to the things that you probably wouldn't have known about if there wasn't social media. You kind of feel like, oh, hey, those friends that I know are hanging out and I wasn't invited, and like now you're feeling bad, or you're seeing someone that you know is your age and they look fantastic and you're like, gosh, I wish I had Botox like they do, and now you hate yourself. Like little things like this that are showing us a different side of this coin. So yeah, those are the thoughts that I had as you were kind of giving us that picture of some of the hazards.
I love this. You're the person to talk to about this, because I remember that world, and I remember sending my family school photos once a year, and that's the only way we knew about each other. And I appreciate you bringing up the things that are good about social media, because in no way are we saying like this is terrible, we should stop. I think we're more so saying that there are some healthy ways to engage with the positive elements of social media. I totally agree with you. I think one thing that is very positive for me about social media is just the information, how quickly I can get information. So for instance, if I need to figure out how to do something right now, I will often search it in social media and get like a quick 30 seconds on how to accomplish something.
How to X. There's so many how to.
And it has been in some cases really life-saving, or, connecting. Like if somebody tells you, hey, you have this illness, for example, you can immediately find other people who have it and you can learn more about it. And so I think there are positive elements. One thing I've noticed about me that I think is the biggest challenge, and I don't know if I'm making a correct correlation here, but my brain is having difficulty with attention. And I can't tell if there's like a chicken or egg situation. Like, did I always have attention issues and I'm just noticing now? Or is it because I'm scrolling so much that the rate at which I'm consuming information has sped up, and it's making things that maybe take a little longer but are worthwhile more difficult to achieve? So I have a stack of books, Brenda, and I start reading these books, and I'm maybe a chapter in before I'm like, let me look up whatever I read in this book. And that's it. I'm down the rabbit hole on my phone, and I'm not circling back for weeks.
Yes, that's a perfect illustration. I'm sure so many people are listening and nodding like, yep, that's me. Because the conveniences of the phone make it so that when you go for something useful, you, like you mentioned, you kind of get into this rabbit hole and then find yourself on Instagram 2 hours later. All right, so we know there's all these challenges, but how can we start to recognize when there's a problem here, when it's not just we're using it practically?
I think that the first thing is if you find that a lot of the media that you are consuming kind of qualifies under what people would say doom scrolling, right? If you're finding that most of the content that you're looking at is instilling fear or anxiety or making you feel really concerned, really overwhelmed, even if it's content that is useful, like understanding what's going on in the world, for example. If you're spending most of your time looking at that, I would say that's a red flag. I also think that if you see yourself in a situation where you're constantly looking at your phone for updates, you're constantly starting conversations on your phone, you're getting distracted, and it's reducing the impact of your day or what you want to get done in a day, I think that is another big issue. And then one thing that I think I always said to my clients when I was doing direct service and therapy is like, really paying attention to your feelings. How do you feel when you are online? How do you feel when you are offline? Like when you just stopped looking at it? Are you worried about how you look? About what steps you've taken in your life? What you should own? Should I buy a house? Are you nervous? Do you have fear? Are you irritable? And I think sometimes paying attention to your feelings during social media scrolling is probably the last thing that we are doing. But that's one way to kind of understand whether or not it makes sense. And I would say the last big one, and this one is one that I think has been the case for a really long time. If you are choosing, if it's impacting your social relationships, right? If you're choosing social media over relationships with family, friends, a partner, the world, you're saying, hey, I don't want to go to the baptism
because I'd rather sit and scroll.
Yeah, not because I don't, if you, maybe you have your reasons for not going to that baptism and I support you. But if the reasons are, I want to stay home and look at my phone, then maybe that's a red flag and something to think about, Brenda. And ¿qué piensas tú? How do you think that we can maybe try to reduce our social media usage without feeling disconnected from the world?
Well, I want to add to some of the what you described earlier, like noticing your feelings. I think that's great. And as we alluded to also earlier, is like noticing the physically, like literally physically what's happening. I think when we're not, when it's new to us to measure our stress, it might be helpful to even understand some of what to look for. So like clenched jaw, a tense shoulders, you haven't moved in a long time because you're in this uncomfortable position looking at your phone. So these are some other ways that you can see if you're actually feeling stressed after looking at the phone. So I love that we've given some examples of how we can recognize when we might be in a little bit of trouble or we need to look for ways to reduce our use. So, I mean, some of the things that I try, and clearly, as you can tell from my confessional, that I'm not doing a great job at this. But one thing that I do well, and I am proud of this particular habit, is that I do charge my phone in a different room than where I sleep. So for the last 30 minutes before I go to bed, there's no screen time because the phone is put away. I'm now brushing my teeth and I read a physical book, and I resist the urge to look stuff up. So I read the physical book, and that has helped a lot. I do feel like I have a lot better rest because I'm not looking at screens for a while. But on the flip side, the first thing I do when I get up is pick up my phone. So I think I need to set little traps for myself that maybe build a routine where I can get through 4 or 5 things before I reward myself with a little bit of phone time. So that might be one of the ways that I could reduce my digital addiction. I mean, I also try to schedule activities with friends that prevent us from looking at phones. So a lot of walks, walk and talks, a lot of hikes. Because even going out to dinner, like after, we might chit chat after a while, but inevitably if you're sitting, like if we need to look something up or blah, 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 like the phones come out. So see if there's something that you can do where it's physically impossible to pick up your phone. Taking a group fitness class, leading a group fitness class. Like these are some ways that I have found that without knowing, but if I was to do that assessment of checking my stress levels, I would recognize that my stress levels are actually down, and probably a lot has to do with the fact that I wasn't looking at a screen. So those are some things that have worked for me. What are some other practical tips to kind of reduce our addiction?
Yeah, I want to jump on what you just said, because I think I've mentioned it on the show, and I mentioned it to you, Brenda, that I have really consciously tried to reduce my screen time by adding things to my schedule that you can't have screen time in, like you just mentioned. So one of the things I do for exercise is I swim a lot, because there's just no way I can't look at my phone while I'm swimming. And because when I was at the gym, I was looking at my phone. I also set up like weight training exercises and things like that where my hands are busy and I really have to be paying attention for safety reasons. I also try, when I'm hanging out with friends, to set up things that do not require a screen. So I'm not going to movies with them often, or things like that, more like concerts, like live events, things like that where I'm outside. And I think one really practical tip is going into your phone and using the systems that exist in your phone, because there's an opportunity for you to stop receiving notifications after a certain hour. There's also different settings within apps where you can limit the amount of time that you are on Instagram, and it gives you an alert. It's the same for using your phone. It'll say, hey, you've been scrolling a while. Do you want to continue? Netflix also has a feature like this, so you can stop. And also turning off notifications on your phone that are not necessary, going through your apps and seeing what notifications are on and turning them off. That has been a lifesaver for me.
Yes, I have no notifications. Yes. So if I don't get back to you, that's why.
I love that. I will turn off mostly things that feel anxiety provoking to me. So if I get an email, I feel nervous, like, oh, I have to answer that. And so now I have like email checking time during the day, and it's not a notification. So that's really helpful. And then I want to talk a little bit about this one, Brenda. I don't know if you've done this, but I started to notice that my feeds in general were leaning a little bit toxic.
Like just assessing, like, what is the stuff that's in your feed?
Yes, and I started to realize, well, the feed is basing this on me. It's basing this on that's part of the issue here, right? Is that these algorithms and these platforms are designed to interact with what you like. So you're getting this like curated, stimulating information in picture form that keeps you there. So I started thinking, well, why am I choosing these things then? Why am I selecting this content that now is so much that I'm aware of it? And it's because anytime I saw something scary, fearful, or something that was alarming, I would spend more time looking at it, because obviously I wanted to see, is this something I should be afraid of? And that led the algorithm to be like, Delsy likes this. Let's give her more of this content. And so what I've been doing lately is being very conscious in my choices for scrolling. If I'm going to scroll, let's say I'm on TikTok, the moment there's something scary, negative, intense, conspiratory, anything like that, I'm like, next. And if it's anything related to wellness, peace, connection, tips and tricks, cozy things, animals, things that make me feel joy, then I will actively look at it for longer. And I've started to kind of curate my social media that way to ensure that I get my news from news sources where we have real journalists who are doing the research and putting news out there, and I'm not necessarily getting some of these little snippets of clickbait.
Yeah, that's all really, really important tips. We all have to be very cognizant on how to spot the true fake news, not what candidate Basura calls fake news, but really, especially because there's so much disinformation and misinformation. And we want to I want to underscore a point, which is that these apps, these tools are designed to keep you engaged. And so, Delsy, as you described, how those things that make you angry are scary, etc., we naturally spend a little more time on that. So it is that negative stuff that fuels more of that content when it's not, and it of course produces the reaction, right? The physical reaction. So all of this is that doom scrolling that we talked about earlier, when it starts to feel bad and it's icky, and you get fed more of that icky stuff over and over. So give yourself oh, wait a minute, I know I'm receiving this. And do as Delsy says, get away from it right away. You can stay informed by getting real news from a news source, but you do not need to be receiving these negative things, or realize when it's doing more than awareness, when it's making you physically react in a way that doesn't feel healthy or productive at all. So exactly what you're saying is what's happening to me lately on TikTok, is that I get real fired up when I see like a Karen behaving badly, right? And so now I've been getting a bunch of content of Karens behaving badly, and I don't, mostly I'm angry, and this way I get fed this stuff. Mostly it's where I'm seeing somebody receive racism, right? Some like that really fuels me up and makes me angry. It makes me want to know what happened. Was there justice? Did this Karen get in trouble? So now I'm getting all of these stories, and again, I don't feel good at the end of it. So hopefully you all can start to recognize those things and recognize that these apps are designed in that way. Those algorithms are designed. You feed it just a little, and even though you might also be feeding that positive stuff, Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, they all know you're going to spend more time on that negative stuff. So they're going to feed you more of it. So we need to bust them.
Yeah, you know what? Thank you for being so honest and vulnerable and sharing what it is that gets you on social media. And it makes me want to share what it is that gets me, which is that when women are missing, I feel this incredible need to mobilize, to find these women, to share, to get my networks in order. I want to keep checking. Did they find her? Did they find her? And I'm so, overwhelmed by the idea of somebody missing, or a woman missing. And the next thing you know, my content is all women missing. And that is very difficult on my brain, on my body, on my own paranoia. And so that is what has gotten me. And on a funny note, on a light note, if we can end on a light note, Brenda, I'd like to hear, what is the craziest thing that social media has made you buy? I'd like to hear about that.
I mean, okay, nothing too crazy. I've been pretty good, but I have done a couple of outfits. So one was on Instagram. It was like this cute little short and top mix that I got in the middle of the pandemic when I was going nowhere. And it just sat in my closet forever. So that was one thing that I done on a purchase from the social media. But you know what? Now that as I say this, I'm realizing I have so many things saved for trips and places I want to be. So I do, and a lot of restaurants that I've discovered have been all through Instagram. So I spend a lot of money on experiences through things that I see on Instagram. What has been the most embarrassing thing that you've purchased?
You know what? I recently purchased this, you guys have probably heard about it, this beef tallow skincare thing where you put animal fat on your face, and it's supposed to make your face really glowy and shiny and whatever. I mean, it's just I would never buy this. This is not something that is something I need or want to buy, but I just got endless videos about this, and I was like, is it true? Does it really do amazing things for your skin? Next thing you know, I'm buying this thing, which is so crazy. I would say
that work? Does it work?
I mean, I am wearing it right now. I don't know, am I glowing?
What does it feel like? Does it feel greasy?
Honestly, it is literally Vaseline that you're putting on your face. They just claim that because it's made from organic substances that your body kind of receives it differently. So saber, but it's not. But this is what I did. I would say that's probably up there with the craziest thing, but there definitely have been some other weird stuff, and I have to kind of tell myself, you don't need this, you do not need this. stop purchasing this right now.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, so we're gonna try to be more conscious this week, Brenda, and maybe later on as the season goes, we'll check back in with our social media stats.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, and we're back. I hope you enjoyed that conversation, Brenda. Thank you so much for talking to me about your social media usage. That was really interesting.
I love learning about the purchases that you make online.
I'd like to hear about your matraca this week.
Well, this week I'm feeling, right now we're watching, some of us are watching the DNC. I mean, I think people are thinking about this election. People are feeling a little bit more engaged, a little bit more energized. And I'm feeling inspired by some friends that are hosting an event in their backyard, raising funds to go to a swing state that needs our support. And I just think that's really, really great to kind of step up and offer your home in that way. So that's my matraca. My matraca is to everyone out there who is doing their part, whether they're hosting fundraisers, whether they're donating, whether they're talking to their friends, whether they're making a plan to vote. All of that is going to be super helpful to protect things like our abortion rights, to protect things like the gains that we've made on the economy, and a number of things. So just feeling inspired by people like that. So matraca to all of you working hard.
Matraca is a creative idea. I love that. For me this week, I've been kind of going through some medical stuff, and I've been going to a lot of doctors, and I have to say I have been treated so well by the people at these, and I'm often a critic of, I'm a very loud person when it comes to our medical system because I think it leaves a lot to be desired. But the people who are working there work so incredibly hard and treat you so well. And I recently watched the Celine Dion documentary. I don't know if you saw that, Brenda,
I have not.
There is a scene where Celine kind of goes through this really intense medical emergency, really, and her healthcare worker is there by her side, and it's this really emotional moment. And it made me really kind of tie those two experiences together in one week, that we need to give a massive shout out to the people who are taking care of us out there in the healthcare community. So matracas to them.
Yes, to all of you out there that are part of the healthcare system. Matracas to you.
¿Y qué va en la basura this week? What do we
Gosh,
have
I don't think I have anything. I'm feeling very, very good. So, the basura is I guess, I mean, okay, maybe I'll come up with something. I think the basura is anybody that incorrectly seems to think that because we are feeling energized and inspired about our odds in this presidential election, that we can't also be critical. I can be a critical thinker while also recognizing that we have to get Kamala elected because there's just too much at stake. So I guess that's my basura, is to people that are feeling that my support of her is unconditional, which it is not.
Yeah, I think that black and white thinking is really not taking us in good directions as a people in both parties. So thank you for that. For me, basura this week, I've been traveling a lot. Brenda, I actually have a lot more travel coming up in the next few months. And the airports are out of control. Can we all discuss? Can we discuss this?
Yes.
I went to the airport and I forgot my neck pillow, and I'm looking at a neck pillow. It's $30, $40, $50.
Out of control.
I'm like, what is happening with this? I'm going to get a sandwich. It's $30. I'm like, what is happening? Like, travel is already so challenging. You have people coming from all over the world who may or may not have the funds to pay for some of these things that are necessary when you're trapped in an airport. Lots of folks don't have the capacity to prepare because their flights have been canceled left and right and delayed. And so now people with kids are there, 24 hours in an airport and need to find food and certain resources. And the inflation rate inside of the airport is unlike anything
I mean, that's not inflation. That's predatory. That's like Disneyland. Like, you're here. Yes, of course. That's what's going on there.
Yes, I cannot believe what I am seeing. And so basura to the airports, kind of fully taking advantage of the fact that people are they're captive in there while they're trying to fly.
Yeah, it's no longer such a pleasant experience, right? Anybody flying has had their horror stories. I know that a lot of friends of Tamarindo were at the Raizado Fest in Aspen, where I heard that United Airlines left so many people stranded with no answers. So, including our last guest, Daisy. I followed her on Instagram and realized that she had like 24 hours of travel before she got home. Oh. So yes, basura to airports and the whole flying experience. We need to figure that out. Like, let's figure that out. All right. So what is your inspiración?
So I watched this documentary. I don't know where I was. I was sleeping on this documentary, but I watched The Power of the Dream, which kind of outlines in 2020 when players from the Atlanta Dream and other WNBA players got together to support the opponent of the then Senator Kelly Loeffler's race, who was Raphael Warnock. And they had this massive impact on getting Raphael elected. He had something like a 3% following at that point. And then by the end of this period of time where they were organizing together and really being active, they raised enough awareness and mobilized voters to get Raphael elected to the U.S. Senate, which was, a really big deal. And what I liked about it was the way that the women were able to get together and problem solve and strategize on how they were going to do the right thing as an organization, considering that their owner did not support Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matters, considering that there is a massive population of people within the WNBA who do support Black Lives Matter and
who are Black lives,
yes, who are Black lives and people who are in support of Black lives. And so they were able to kind of get together and figure out how they were going to combat this issue. And it took a lot of bravery. They could have lost their jobs. They could have lost what they were working on their whole lives to be on the WNBA. And so that was really inspiring for me. It gave me a lot of courage.
I love that because I just got done watching him speak at the DNC, and his speech was very inspirational because it was very historic that he, along with the other senator of Georgia, they were elected. Like, this was miraculous because Georgia is also a state where there's a lot of voter suppression. I mean, and continues to be, and that he is a perfect reminder of what sort of organizing is necessary to get these folks elected, and a reminder that progressive voters are there. They're just up against so many different obstacles in some of these states, but it can happen. And I love that I didn't know about this documentary, but I'm gonna have to watch it. And I love you telling us about this story and creating awareness around that.
¿Y tú, what's your inspiración for this week?
Well, one of the things that I do like about my phone is the Libby app. I love listening to audiobooks. So Libby is that app that allows you to get books and audiobooks from the library, so you don't have to pay. And I just read a fabulous book. It's called House in the Pines by a Latina author, Ana Reyes. It was really riveting. It was a riveting story. I guess it would be a thriller. I would describe this story as. So if you all haven't picked it up, I'd say go get it. It'll be an exciting ride. The main character is a young Latina. Well, she's half white, half Guatemalan, and it's her experiencing getting off of mood suppressants, or was that what they're called? Mood stabilizers. She was getting off of mood stabilizers, and at the same time that she's experiencing this, she's also reintroduced to some scary characters in her life, and it is a mystery about whether or not she's hallucinating or imagining the horrors that happened, or whether they really did happen. And so you're kind of sucked into the story that then unravels the truth. And I thought it was just really well done. Within this story, there's a number of other stories, including maybe the love story between her parents and some like folklore. I mean, there's a lot in here. Ana Reyes did an incredible job in telling this story. So you all should pick up House in the Pines.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Brenda, thank you so much for being here.
Yes. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this guest-free Tamarindo podcast episode. All right. See you next time. Bye. Ponte un suéter.
Saludos a la familia.
Ciao. Tamarindo Podcast is Brenda Gonzalez and Delsy Sandoval. We are also the show's executive producers. Jeff Ricards wrote our theme song. Sonoro Media's Karina Riveroll provides production support, and Clivia Torres edits our episodes for YouTube. The best way to support our work is to rate and review Tamarindo or share an episode with a friend. Get in touch with us at tamarindopodcast.com.